What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Wednesday night, September 6th, 2023, about 10:30 p.m. California time. Latest activity looks like a 2.7 out here on the Earthquake 3D globe here around the Mediterranean Sea. That is the latest activity. Well, what do we got here for global movement here in the last 24 hours? Well, of course, we did see some deeper activity here into this region just off North Korea. This is an extremely deep earthquake. We're talking about below 600 kilometers deep. Something brewing out here at the surface area. So watch this region around Japan, Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, off the coast of Russia. This area definitely brewing something big, I believe. Also, we did see a 6.2 down into the South America region, a relatively shallow earthquake here at about 41 kilometers deep. This originally came in as a 6.7, eventually got figured out there by the geologists and settled at a 6.2 magnitude earthquake there, about 41 kilometers deep. And as you can see, this area is no stranger to large earthquakes. We're talking about mega earthquakes. So as you can see, definitely quite a bit of earthquake activity here historically. All right. Up here in the Idaho area, got a little swarm of activity around Chalice area. Looks like some threes, well, a 3.3 and a couple other smaller earthquakes in there as well throughout the afternoon time period. Up there in the White Valley Mountain area of Idaho. Idaho's got some beautiful backcountry, very similar to Yellowstone, but without all the traffic. I think next time I visit this area, I'm going to skip Yellowstone and just visit the back area of Idaho. All right, speaking of Yellowstone, what do we got? Anything major going on? A handful of smaller earthquakes, so let's just double check this here. We'll go over to the Yellowstone overview here, maybe, and see what we got. There's that 6.2, by the way. It did show up pretty nicely here on this seismograph station. The majority of seismograph stations across the globe that are properly tuned will pick up this 6.2. So you can see some of the sensitivity stations here, or some of the sensitivity of the seismograph stations out here. Some of these are pretty much squashed. You won't even see a Bigfoot or even a comet slammed into Earth. So that, you know, the 6.2 gives me a good indicator of what stations are working appropriately, at least as far as the tunage goes. Down here around the promontory picked that up as well. Okay, but as far as earthquake activity locally there at the Yellowstone area, pretty quiet. There's not a whole lot of movement going on out there. Earlier this morning there was a handful of smaller quakes, but those are generally normal out there in that area. Mount St. Helens, what do we got? They're only showing one earthquake here from last night, so, well, I think you guys know me. I'm going to go investigate, see what's going on here across the Mount St. Helens area. It has been of some interest here recently, and they have been seeing a little bit of earthquakes swarming up here. I don't want them to, put this on the back burner. I want this to be brought up front as far as the activity goes. As far as the activity goes, there's still some earthquake activity, although it looks like, to me anyway, we haven't seen any large-scale, well, at least, maybe 2s or 3s out here. That broad signature here across the seismograph station has not shown up in the last 24 hours here. So it looks like maybe some of this, well, there's an earthquake right here. Looks a lot bigger than a 0.6, obviously. But it looks like the activity may be slowing down slightly. But there's still quite a bit. If you look here, these are little seismograph signatures of earthquakes, and well, they're still continuing. So obviously we'll continue to monitor and watch that throughout the Mount St. Helens area. Northern California, anything major going on out here? Not yet, but it's just one of those days here where we see a little bit of microquake activity out here. 1.6 near McKinleyville. About 9 kilometers deep. That is associated with quite a few fracture zones at the surface here. And those fracture zones are strictly due to the Cascadia subduction zone. That's a given, that's for sure. A little bit of activity across the coast range here of Northern California earlier this morning with a 2.1 near Covelo. And of course, activity across the Clear Lake volcanic field. This is the hydrothermal operations there, produced by Calpine Operations Energy Solutions. I don't know what they're called exactly, but that's the company out there creating energy out of sewage. Pretty crazy story. It's really not a story. It's pretty much a fact, but it's a kind of a, yeah. Okay, moving on. 2.1, 2.5 is the latest earthquake here near Pinnacles. That is right smack dab on the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault near Bear Valley Fault. Further down the road here, pretty quiet. Look at that. Not a whole lot going on here. This is very typical, and even so, this is probably below background activity. This is very small earthquake activity scattered about here in the Southern California area. We're not seeing anything kicking up out there at all for now. The rest of the country looks about the same. There's that one earthquake out there in Alabama earlier this morning, a 2.3. We haven't really seen any earthquake uptick since then. Into the Alaska area, a handful of earthquakes there across the major plate boundary. Very similar to what we see in California, right? But it's not a subduction zone down south. This is a major subduction zone. Look at that. Look at this trench region right here. This is scary because these earthquakes here can produce some big-time quakes out here. Any subduction zone is capable of producing a mega quake, about 9.0 or greater. And for now, we've been relatively lucky out here across the Alaska area, but that won't last for long. Western areas of the Pacific Ring of Fire, another major subduction zone. This one's about as smooth and as transparent as can be here across the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. Of course, the 9-pointer out there in Japan back in 2011 just gives us a general indicator of what can take place out here amongst the Japan Trench and the Kuril-Kamchatka. I think the Kuril-Kamchatka has enough strain now to produce a large earthquake. I think it's just a matter of time before we see that pop off. Further across the area here, let's get rid of Hawaii off the map. Yeah. I love when that happens. There we go. Go back here. What do we got way down here? Look at that. Little 5.1 Pacific Antarctica Ridge. Yeah, that was almost an hour ago, but that was not there on the map when I started up the earthquake update. So this data getting to us a little bit on the ancient side here from the USGS. But either way, a little bit of activity along the divergent boundaries. That should kick up some further activity out here, potentially. Well, Antarctica area, yes, but there's not a whole lot of stations down there across the ice wall. So, I mean, when was the last time you seen an earthquake down here across Antarctica? There's obviously some earthquake activity that takes place, but it's never really been introduced out here to the public for the most part. So for now, 5.1 Pacific Antarctica Ridge. Areas around the Fiji area looks like for the most part, bring up that. The last earthquake of 4.3. Some deeper movement quakes returning to the Fiji area after some moderate activity here at the surface. Moderate activity applying strain further to the west here. It's very typical across this plate boundary. The general plate tectonic motion in this area is to the northwest, and that would obviously add strain across this area of the plate boundary and areas across the western region of the Pacific Plate. As far as Hawaii goes, it's going. Somebody asked, how's it going out there in Hawaii as far as volcanic activity goes? Well, it's going. It's pretty much at a neutral standpoint right now as far as volcanic activity goes there across the Kilauea volcano. We're just kind of watching it, seeing how things play out. Right now, the magma is below the surface, and there's really been no migration towards the surface as far as earthquake activity goes, but we will continue to monitor that. Nothing going on out here across the Mediterranean as far as large-scale movement goes. And I think this 5.5 is going to be one of those You know, those errors that is reported by the EMSC, unfortunately. That's just, sometimes it happens. It seems like it happens a couple times a week. As you can see, let's go to the world map here as far as earthquake activity goes. There we go. And as you can see, there's no 5.5. If anything, this is going to be the 2.5 there in this little strait off the coast of Morocco. But for whatever reason, the EMSC puts out a false magnitude earthquake there, 5.5, in place of that 2-pointer, or 3-pointers, or 2.5, yeah. So, I don't know. It's been an issue ever since they revised their site here. I really don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it. It's glitchy. It's really glitchy. If you go into an area and zoom out, or zoom to the area, it wants to go all over the place, and sometimes it doesn't even load. So I am not really a big fan of this. Look at that. I'm trying to scoot over to the west, and that's what it's doing. So I don't like it. I'm not liking it one bit. So EMSC, get your stuff together, because it is not working right. Space weather activity. What do we have here? A little eclipse going on of the sun due to the spacecraft out there that monitors the earthquake activity. It's probably the Earth's shadow, right, being eclipsed out here. This is the sun being eclipsed by the Earth. That the spacecraft is, it's obviously the data gets blacked out here. Every 24 hours we see that. There's not a day that goes by that we don't see that eclipse happen. So right now, a little bit of sea flare activity kicking up there on the chart. Looking at the magnetic structure of the sunspots. Still looking at this one here. Does harbor a little bit of potential for some M flare activity. Looking at these different regions within the sunspot area. Somewhat complex. We do have another sunspot here that's growing, but it's not growing the right way. These are separations. It's almost like a divorce is going on here across these two regions of the sunspot core. And that's not what we want in terms of magnetic structure complexity. So unless this thing gains some further core activity here, this will not be a threat. Some further flare or some further sunspot activity around the northeastern limb of the sun. Right now, it almost looks like some flaring activity from this sunspot right here. Notice that? A little bit of sea flare activity. And that is indeed coming from 3423, but it's not, again, this is not a major threat for solar flare activity. Some minor flare activity, yes, but let's see here. Is that the most recent? Hold on a second here. That's the most recent image here. So we'll continue to watch that, but it doesn't look like there's... maybe super close there. If you look really closely at the arrow, there's a little bit of orange in this blue mixture right here. Either way, we'll continue to watch it. It looks like there's a little bit of flaring kicking off there from that sunspot right now. 95% chance for a C flare, M flare at 25, X flare 5% chance. And for the aurora forecast, you guys are out of luck. There's not a whole lot going on there as far as the auroras go with the current solar setup. We do have a not a major hurricane yet, but we got Lee out here, which is looking pretty awesome. This is expected to be a Category 5 here as it reaches into warmer waters of the Atlantic. Big time storm, and this is a big time watcher right now in terms of the potential for the East Coast. Right now it is heading off to the let me go back here, west-northwest at about 12 knots, which is 14 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds there at 80 miles per hour, 70 knots. Pressure is dropping to about 989 MB. Again, this hurricane here is really expected to get really close here to the eastern portion of the country. Let me show you guys here real quick on the latest numerical model. I'm going to go out here into the Atlantic real quick. The tropical Atlantic. We can use the North Atlantic. This will work. Here's good old Lee down here, right? expected to become a major hurricane here in the coming days, and that thing will strengthen. We're talking about low pressure down to about 931, category 5 strength hurricane. 927, that thing is a monster. But as of right now, it appears to be caught up here. We got high pressure up here that is kicking up clockwise, right? So that is kind of drifting, well, it's kind of scooting stuff up to the north, but also the lower level patterns here. Let's see what we got here. It almost looks like it wants to be caught up here in this low pressure system. That's probably what's going to pull it away from the East Coast if this wasn't here, right? Counterclockwise rotation. This is going to go zoop, 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 right? This is pulling all the moisture up towards this area. And that's going to scoot off to the northeast. This is going to follow that pattern. And if this wasn't here, I think we'd be looking at some damage out there across the eastern portion of the country. But the latest weather model shows the near miss. It's been pretty consistent. This is about the 14th or 15th of September. It is September 6th right now, about 9 days or so. We'll continue to watch and report back on this as these models become a little bit more accurate. But there's another hurricane right behind that. Look at that. Goodness. The Atlantic is looking very tropical right now as far as the hurricane status goes. So, it's that time of year, right? Ocean waters are warm, and it's the El Nino out here kind of affecting some activity in the Atlantic. Far as the California area goes, let's go ahead and check out the western United States here. Far as the precipitation and moisture out here over the next few days or so, we're going to look at total accumulated precipitation out here. I don't think California is looking at anything at all. We're out here in the dry zone. You can see Texas is going to get involved in some precipitable moisture out there, much needed around the Austin area, Houston area as well. Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska getting in on some moisture as well. And these guys definitely need it. Boy, do they need it. I was just looking at the drought map. Let me see if I can still have that keyed up here. Oh, is this going to be it? Let me see here. This is the current drought map here as of August 31st. So you can see certain regions out here across the states are in much need of some precipitation. So that extreme drought out here in central Texas, I think you guys are going to get some rain here in the coming few days. That's a good sign. Also up here in Kansas and Nebraska are underneath some, moderate drought. Out here across California, right? We're not even in a drought. Imagine that. We had a sufficient rainfall activity event throughout the winter. And that hurricane, oh goodness, I forgot. It's off the top of my head right now. But the hurricane that last ventured up here, the tropical storm that hit Southern California, dropped a bunch of rainfall. And look what it did for the drought map. Nada. Zip zero. No drought in California. Maybe extreme Northern California and up into Oregon and Washington. But, and this is kind of good news, right? Because the El Nino pattern is coming up for this winter. And most of the time, the El Nino pattern provides sufficient rainfall in Northern California southward. Unfortunately, that's bad news for the folks in Washington and Oregon, as they are left a little bit drier. And right now they are dealing with a drought up there in Oregon and Washington. So that drought will probably intensify with this El Nino pattern that's developing, and expected to be a strong one throughout our rainy season. Although most of this area down here is in a drought, that will be probably erased coming up here in the few months and over the year, I would probably say, as El Nino makes this area much wetter. So Texas area and probably Oklahoma as well will be out of that drought. California, we're out of the drought right now, and another wet winter coming up. Well, that's good news for us. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm going to be paying close attention to what's going on with the weather patterns out there across the Pacific Northwest and California. So it looks like there was 2 earthquakes down here, a 5.1, 5.2, within probably about 10 minutes of each other there. So these look like they are legit earthquakes. I don't know if we've seen anything popping up here on the seismograph. A little bit of activity in Chile right now, probably some aftershock activity. But that could spell a little bit of trouble out here. This is divergent boundary activity that puts strain on the Pacific plate. Now, the general plate motion out here in this case would be towards the north-northwest, which pretty much puts areas around Fiji southward into New Zealand and areas along the western Pacific plate here in line. Divergent boundary activity is obviously a form of plate tectonic, plate movement, and we'll watch and see what happens following this activity. All right, folks, what else we got here? By the way, we are over 300 entries into our 100,000 subscriber giveaway. Goodness. We're keeping Missy Mimi's busy as she is, she is the one that's keeping track of all the entries and entering them into the fishbowl. I'm hoping we can reach 1,000 entries for this drawing. So let's see if we can't make that happen. Make sure you guys share our video, our YouTube channel. Again, the 100,000 subscriber video is a thank you to you guys for making it happen here, far as the viewership and the subscriber count on this Earthmaster channel. It's only because of you guys. That's it. So we want to reward you guys with a cool drawing. And that's what we're doing here coming up at the end of this month. We'll be providing the winner details. Actually, we'll be doing it live, obviously. I'm not going to pick out winners and say, here you go, this guy won, this girl won. No, it's going to be live at the last day of this month. The drawing is up on the channel, or as far as the entry videos go, it's up on the channel. And, of course, I will provide that continuously here after these updated videos for the next few days or so. I don't know if I'll include it all the way to the end of the month, but I want to give everyone a chance to enter into the drawing because I think it's fair that everyone has that chance to win some prizes out there. 10 people going to be getting some cool stuff. I ordered some Earthmaster pins. That's going to be part of the winning for those winners out there. Also, I ordered some 2129. Okay, so I ordered some t-shirts from our new company that are making our merchandise called Streamlabs. I'm gonna see how their merchandise is. If I like them better, then I will be providing those t-shirts and stuff like that for the winners from that website instead of the Spring website, which a lot of people have ordered from. I appreciate that. But I'm looking for quality. I'm all about quality. I'm not about multitude, right? We're all about quality on this channel. That's why we're streaming. Obviously, with I think we're running at 2.7K, 60 frames a second, over 10,000 KBs a second. And we want to provide the best quality viewership and merchandise we can out there to our viewers. And that's how it is. That's how I've always been. It's always been about viewership and quality. So if this new company works out good, we're going to switch over to them permanently and get rid of the Spring store because it's been up and down with them. So, all right, folks. I hope everyone has a good night. Stay safe out there, and of course, we will chat you guys sometime tomorrow. Have a wonderful Wednesday evening, Thursday morning. Take care, folks.